Hi, everybody. I'm Katrina Potter, and in our series, we're talking a lot about kids and emotional health, immune system. And so I wanted to share our family chiropractor, Dr. Pete. Dr. Pete is our chiropractor for the past couple of years. We bring our whole family to see him, and we've had tremendous success coming. We've brought Madeline from baby throughout my pregnancy. My husband comes to see him, and then our toddler. So can you share a little bit about what makes your chiropractor office unique, and also just what got you involved in chiropractic? Because I think this is a really interesting story.
Okay, it is a very interesting story, and it goes back a little way. So if you can just indulge for a minute, my dad was a chiropractor for 50 years in this town. Okay. And I grew up in a chiropractic family as the youngest of 5 kids. And I used to receive chiropractic care whenever my father told me to get adjusted, which was whenever I felt sick or whenever he was just adjusting the whole family. So either I was sick or I wasn't sick, and I would go get adjusted, but I had no idea what it was all about. Absolutely no idea. Fast forward till I'm like 15, 16 years old. My mother gets sick. She gets cancer, and she passed away when I was 16. Worst time of my life. Absolutely awful. I kind of gave up about like trying in school, trying in sports and all that stuff. And went to college and didn't really know what I was going to do, but I just started going to college, taking sciences. And somebody along the way just said, maybe you should be a chiropractor like your dad. And I was like, I don't really want to be a chiropractor like my dad, but my oldest brother was a chiropractor in Florida. And we went down to visit him, and his office was totally different. It was really kind of high tech, and he looked like he was doing really well for himself. So I was like, wow, maybe I should consider this.
Be a chiropractor like
So I'm in college, okay, and on break, and I just took a course in immunology, and I had to write a paper on, of all things, cancer. And so I researched cancer, and I was trying to figure out, I didn't know anything about cancer other than I killed my mother when I was 16. And they talked about the sources of changing our DNA being stressors, like physical stresses, chemical stresses, and emotional stresses. They really didn't have a great explanation of how our cellular makeup changed in cancer. But I knew that it was related to some type of stress. And I knew my mother had a ton of stress in her lifetime, let alone raising me as a teenager. I was pretty crazy. So not saying that I was the sole cause of that, but I definitely had some contribution, as we all do. So fast forward, my brother says he's going to take me out to lunch. So I'm sitting in his office, literally in his office, waiting for him to take me out to a nice lunch, because I'm a college kid looking for a free meal.
Free food. It all boils back to free food.
I'm sitting there, I'm like, what am I going to do? And I reach over to a pamphlet that I pull out, and I start reading about chiropractic for really the first time in my life. I didn't even really know what it was about. And it starts describing how this word subluxation, which is when your spine loses alignment, motion, and it irritates the nervous system, how it was caused by physical stress, chemical stress, and emotional stress. And a light bulb went off for me at that moment. And I thought to myself, are you kidding me? Is that really could that have changed everything? The nervous system controls everything. Could all the stresses of her life so negatively impact her nervous system? And it made me think back, her history. I knew when she was a little girl, she had a diving accident. She injured her upper neck as a little girl. And when she did that, she had migraine headaches for her whole adult life and her teenage life. And anybody that's had migraine headaches knows how bad they are. And that's literally how she met my father, because when she became a teacher, she met my dad. He was her chiropractor. They fell in love. Long story short, family, right? So, but my whole life, she always had a rash on the back of her neck. So here's this skin eruption that she could never get rid of. And we know that the nerves, if they're damaged in the upper neck, they also supply the skin in that region. So when my mother went through her cancer battle and so forth, she tried chemotherapy once, and it made her so sick. And she's like, you know what? They gave me 2 months to live. I'm not going to spend 2 months being sick. So my mother was a pioneer back in the 80s. She went to the library and used the card catalog and started researching on her own. And she found macrobiotic dieting and shiatsu and all these crazy things that I'd never heard of. But all I knew is the food in our house changed. and we were eating miso soup and brown rice out of a pressure cooker. And I was losing weight left and right. I was so hungry. But my mother's hair got better. Her skin on her neck got better. Like all of a sudden I was like, wow, she's getting better. And the 2 months went by and she had lost weight, but she wasn't dead, right? She lived for 10 months, you know, without chemo. And then she did die, right? But what I learned from that was that, you know what, there's more to this than what medicine has to offer. So when I went to chiropractic college, because I went back to my undergrad and I started really applying myself, met my wife, and I started to get amazing grades, got into chiropractic college. Not that you have to have amazing grades to get into chiropractic college if your check clears. But yeah, I got great grades, went to chiropractic college, but my goal was I'm going to learn everything I possibly can learn to help people. You know, I just know that there's so much of this out there. And there's so many kids that lose their parents like I did, and it sucks. And I wanted to do whatever I can to keep people well instead of let them get down the road to where they're already in a major chronic disease.
Right. Like going from that proactive model to the reactive, which is
exactly.
Piece. And I think that your passion for the proactive model really radiates. That's one of the things that I feel like for us was an instant connection in coming here, because there's just a upbeat feeling when you walk in. Everyone is really positive and optimistic. And then there's also this piece of you walk the walk and genuinely share things that are of interest to us, being proactive. What are some other things that you would say kind of set things different, set chiropractic apart here than in other models?
Yeah, I mean, chiropractors practice differently all around the world, and I'm not saying that our way is the only way, or there's
but
more.
There's a cool way.
Yeah, well,
I'm very drawn to the way that
I know, but there's there's more than one way to do anything, and I set our office up the way I want to be treated. Like what I know is that chiropractic is good for the nervous system, right? So one of the things we do here is if you're going to say you're going to influence the nervous system and help somebody's nervous system through chiropractic care, then you got to take a look at it, right? Yeah. You got to quantify it. You got to measure it. So we do objective tests in the office that are easy to do. They're quick, and we do them throughout care for a person's entire life. We don't just do it once and you're done. We don't just take one set of Xrays and you never have another set again. But we analyze the effects of the nervous system and how it responds to care. So, and as you go through life, what happens? Sometimes you're worse than other days, and you can see that objectively with the tests that we use, like HRV and thermography and EMG and all that stuff that measures nerve activity.
I think that was one of the cool things for me was I started coming here before I was pregnant for Madeline, and we did the analysis of things. And then I could see kind of the impact of carrying a baby on the body through those objective measures to see, wow, this is really something that I need to step up. And so I was coming once a week while I was pregnant, and just to see like the load that it carries on the body, on the back, on my pelvis was terrible, all of those things. But one thing before we keep going, I just want to make sure, can you explain a little bit about the nervous system? I'm not sure if people watching are familiar with what the nervous system means.
Okay.
Let's just back up.
So let's just back it right up. Nervous system, your brain, your spinal cord, and all the nerves that branch off of there, right? So what's its job? It is the master system of the body. Every medical text will agree with that phrase, is that the nervous system controls and regulates everything. So every cell, tissue, and organ is really under direct communication with the nervous system. So super important, and that's why we analyze it, because the brain's constantly sending and receiving information or energy flowing through that system. So my job is to make sure that those messages, those signals, that life energy flowing through us is working as efficiently and as balanced as possible. Okay. Perfect. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. And I remember reading one time that when a baby is developing in the mother's womb, the spinal column is one of the first things to develop, right?
Yeah, actually it's called a primitive streak, and that becomes our spinal cord, which then actually wraps over itself, and that's when the brain starts, the beginning of our brain develops. It's really amazing how the timing of all that as we continue to grow, and as those nerve endings extend and the organs grow off of those nerve endings. I mean, it's actually amazing to watch that all unfold. And you can see that. You can actually find YouTube videos that show that happening in 3D ultrasound.
I actually watched one of those when I was pregnant for Madeline. I don't know what got me on that train, but I was watching that when I was pregnant for her. So while we're on that subject, why would it make sense for a baby to be adjusted after delivery?
Okay, so
about babies.
Yeah, so delivery. Everybody's delivery is a little different. It's all unique, right? So some people have a great vaginal delivery. Some people have a stressed vaginal delivery. Some people are born with a C-section delivery where there was a lot of stress when the baby's in the womb and trying to come through the birth canal. It didn't work, so they rip them, remove them. I don't want to say rip, but I did. So that's recorded. That's already out there. I can't get that one back.
That triggered a lot of women.
So anyway, yeah. So C-section delivery, vacuum extraction, forceps. All of those things can induce stress to the infant through to the newborn, and so. If we look at the nervous system, we have really a couple different types of nerves. We have sensory nerves, which are nerves that carry information to the brain. You have motor nerves that carry information to the muscles out from the brain. And then you have autonomic nerves where the brain is sending signals to all the organs in the body that work automatically. So I always like that term autonomic because I always think automatic. That's how I remember it, right? So the autonomic nervous system is really important, and I can see that the camera has got a chart over there that you can see that, and really that's showing the nerve connections to different organs in the body. And we have two types of autonomic nerves: the sympathetics and parasympathetics. Not to get too technical, but
but this is cool. I remember you teaching me this with Olivia. Okay. So this is cool.
This is cool. Yeah, hang in there.
Right. This is really exciting.
So exciting. Let's learn some neuro. Okay, so the sympathetic nerves are our fight or flight nerves, right? So what happens why do we have fight or flight? What's it for? It's a survival mechanism, right? So if somebody's trying to kill you, what happens? Your brain sends signals to produce this hormone called adrenaline. And what happens with adrenaline? Well, it increases our blood pressure, it speeds up our heart rate, it increases our cholesterol production, and it suppresses our digestive functions, and it suppresses the immune functions, because really what it's geared for is getting blood and energy to our muscles to run as fast as we can.
Get away from the bear.
Or to fight to the death, right?
Yeah.
To save yourself. So that is only meant to be expressed short term. And what's just really cool is that we have something else, the antagonist or the opposite of that, which is the parasympathetic nerves. So sympathetic is fight or flight. Parasympathetic, I always say, is rest, relax, digest, because it's the brake. If the sympathetic is the accelerator, the parasympathetic is the brake. Okay? And my analogy is a race car. Right? A Ferrari, because it's Italian, right? So a Ferrari is a really cool car. And when you step on the gas, your expectation is to be thrown back in the seat from all that horsepower. And then when you want to go up to a sharp curve and slow down, you want to step on really good brakes to brake you. But if you step on the brakes and they're like bicycle brakes on that Ferrari, you're in trouble, okay? And we have too many people that have their foot on the accelerator all day long from stress, and their brakes have gotten weak. They've gotten burned out. And so they end up in this sympathetic dominant state, which leads the door open to sickness and disease. Now, a newborn being born, if the delivery is great, that's awesome. But it's also oftentimes a good idea to be checked by a chiropractor that understands this concept, because if you can actually focus on addressing any imbalances in that system through the checks and analysis that we do to see how is that system working, and looking at those neurological reflexes and how are those rudimentary reflexes, how are they all working, because you can bring them back into balance. So typically when I adjust newborns, where do I focus? At the very top of the spine and at the very bottom of the spine, because that's where the brakes are. That's where the parasympathetic nerves exit the spine, and that's where we have a good influence on that. And if you can work on getting those brakes to work better, especially after a stressful delivery, it helps them digest better, helps a colicky baby better. It doesn't fix everything, but boy, it's really good for you.
Sleeping patterns too, right?
Yeah.
Is that
sure.
where we kind of start
your
that?
Ability to sleep is a hormonally regulated event, but what controls release of hormones is the nervous system, right? So people forget about that. When they have hormone issues, you forget that your nervous system is what is dealing with those hormones, right?
So then similarly, as we're talking about children today, that would be another reason why it would make sense to have a child regularly checked to make sure that that's in balance too.
Yeah, right? I like the word you just used, which is checked. Right? So checked is the analysis to determine whether an adjustment is needed or not needed, and where it is needed specifically, versus like a lot of chiropractors use the word manipulation. And manipulation is a gross, general movement of the spine, not to balance the nervous system necessarily. That's not the goal. That goal is to maybe release stuck joints and to make people feel better mobility-wise, which is all well and good, but it's very different, and that's something that I think that delineates our office, is that I make specific adjustments based on analysis. If you remember when you were pregnant, I still remember one of the adjustments I gave you on your pelvis.
I remember that too.
Right? No, seriously, tell about what was going on. What were you experiencing?
I had traumatic, no, it wasn't. It was fine, but my hip was twisted and bad. It was extremely painful. And I remember it was right over there, and I cried, and I just
do something.
I don't want to do this anymore. But you were able to correct it, and then after that, pregnancy was smooth. It was smooth, but it was that piece of
analyzing it.
Exactly.
And that was it. We had to figure out what happened there. Why did your nervous system change the muscle tone and tension to create such a rotation in your pelvis? And that was the correction that we found, was that through analyzing some different things, I was able to figure out, oh my gosh, the baby is laying a certain way on your pelvis. The nerves are being stimulated a certain way, and this is the result. So let's deal with the cause of it by making a specific adjustment in this direction. And lo and behold, hey, it worked.
And to add to, like, I'm sure a lot of moms are watching this. I was carrying a toddler, so you have that natural component of twisting your pelvis to hold a toddler, sitting down at a desk. So just as I'm doing right now, not modeling correctly, we twist our hips to sit. So there's all of this additional stress, which for me was just kind of, I think, compounding on top of each other, added with the baby. So I think that's really interesting. And then the other piece on a baby component, and I know some of the people that I've talked to previously about, both of our daughters had tongue and lip ties, and then we had a lot of tightness around the neck and different issues with each girl. But that's another piece where chiropractic care for a baby really, and from our testimonies, had a profound impact on their development. I don't know if there's anything.
Well, again, it's stress, right? So when a kid and an adult, whenever we feel threatened, or if we have a chronic pain thing, that is a stimulation of that sympathetic stress response. And that's where, we do a lot of good work there, is, trying to calm that back down. I had a new patient today, 18-month-old little girl. Mom brought her in just because she researched us. I don't know, but the girl's dealing with a specific digestive issue. I'm not going to mention what it is, but 18-month-old kid doesn't know me, and I'm wearing my mask, right? And she's scared. And so by the time I got done adjusting her, because we focused on that parasympathetic, she was like almost asleep. because it was so calming to her, and it was not a stressful event.
And also, you do a really good job of calming kids. My daughter we do gratitudes every night, and she'll say, "I'm grateful for Dr. P." So part of that is added into your demeanor when working with kids. But yeah, that is a cool piece.
That's because I'm a big kid too.
Yeah. She had a dinosaur in the office. She came in and was, "This one's Dr. P." You have different personalities. You can be a dinosaur, a doctor, whatever works.
You got to adapt. You got to adapt.
So for the theme of back to school, I know for a lot of parents, there's a lot of stress right now and talking about immune system and just thinking about habits to promote overall wellness as we get into this season.
Sure.
What would be some things that you could share with everyone around that topic when we're thinking about their kids? I mean, there might be sports also coming up for kids.
We don't know what's coming up.
We don't know what's happening.
So that's the big thing is like right now, everybody's got a ton of questions and there's not a lot of like solid answers. So I guess my first thing is, don't speculate. There's so much out there right now. Everybody's just in this whole like, playing scenarios over in your head and speculating like, what if this happens and this happens and this happens. First of all, just try to get your head like grounded first on, not trying to play out too many scenarios. Right. And I know we've got a plan because moms have to plan for their kids because certainly they're not going to plan. But, do the best you can to just try to, roll with the punches right now because we're all rolling with the punches. We don't know what's happening. But from the stance of, what can we do to boost immune system? First of all, make sure your kids get enough sleep. I mean, sleep is critical to boosting immune system. When do you get sick? When do I get sick? I get sick when I'm run down, right? When I don't get enough sleep and, what's the next best thing you can do? Well, limit sugar. I hate, as much as kids love sugar, but I mean, that's an immune killer, right?
And that's usually in the colder months, we see there's different holidays paired with sugar. So you add in enclosed
and we have
spaces.
So many emotional hang-ups with these things, right? Like, it's like dessert is this treat, so it's like, oh, there's a positive emotion. It's a treat, but I'm already full from my meal, but let me gorge myself with dessert, which is this sugar, which just, it's a stress. It's a stress on the digestive system, the pancreas. I mean, so yeah, diet is really important. So if you want to improve your kid's immune system, make sure they get enough rest, have them eat as healthy as you can eat, and exercise, sunlight, vitamin D3. So, daylight is shrinking. I'm an early riser, so I really notice that. So we want to increase vitamin D3 intake. See your chiropractor.
I was just going to say
get adjusted. Why? Because it's good for your immune system. We know that. There's lots of studies out there that talk about how chiropractic improves the immune function. Why? The nervous system controls the immune system. So if your nervous system is efficient, then your immune system is going to be in better shape to operate. Right?
And that's one of the things to kind of segue into talking about immune system and things that we've done for our girls in the winter months, or when I notice that there is something going on health-wise with them, we tend to come and see you more frequently. Like if there's extra fluid or just I can notice that they're fighting off something. So that would be something as well, as certainly getting into a proactive routine for the family, but then coming in, we come to you as our first.
Yeah.
We need some extra support.
I appreciate the trust. That, and again, that's kind of the golden rule. This is the way I grew up. I didn't know it, but that's the way I grew up. I never went to a pediatrician, we never, in school, I remember the 3x5 card I had to fill out. Like, who's the point of contact? My father. Who's your doctor? My father. It was the same phone number. We had a home office. I wrote that number down like 3 times on that card, and my teacher would always be like, "Are you sure this is right?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's the only doctor I've ever seen."
He does all of the things. Yeah. Well, that's been the case for us. I mean, just coming in and 9.5 times out of 10, the body is capable of taking, natural solutions to take care of things. That's what we're both all about. So
I mean, medicine has its place in
Right.
emergencies, right? And I get that, but not every
we've
symptom
come
is an
in
emergency.
just to kind of give some ideas. Olivia had a cough. We were coming in extra. She had fluid in her ears. We came in extra, just like using that as an opportunity to do more for her.
Well, and it's the same token. I mean, essential oils. It's it's why you pull out a different oil because your kid's expressing a different system. And what does it do? The olfactory system, nervous system, first cranial nerve, the olfactory nerve, direct pathway to the brain, right? So different scents, different natural scents are good for the nervous system. And if it's calming and relaxing, what are you doing? You're helping your brain's chemistry. I mean,
Right.
how important is that? I mean, that's neurosurgery without a scalpel. Think about it.
Right. Well, and that's the piece of just adding different layers of natural proactive measures.
Right.
I feel like that's the big piece for both of us. So we talked about ideas for back to school, being proactive with child just coming in to have checkups. Yeah. Certainly adults. I mentioned in the very beginning, both Matt and I come in. I still am. I think I'm coming in every week, sometimes every other week, depending. But I just find that I overall am responding to stress better, being on a routine with it. I look forward to getting adjusted. This week I wasn't scheduled and I came in anyway, just because my body is like, well, I want to get adjusted. It's just a really
And it's
nice
like
practice.
We use an analogy. We use the dental analogy all the time. When's the best time to start taking care of teeth? And it's obviously right away, as soon as you start getting them. We teach our kids to brush their teeth. And why do we do that? Because we know that if you care for your teeth, they're going to last you a lot longer. Well, spine is very similar. It's not just the spine, it's the spine and nervous system together. And if you begin caring for it early in life, what happens? It's going to serve you a lot better later in life.
And if for anyone that has ever experienced pain somewhere in your spine or in your shoulders, which, I also want you to share, it's not just the back. Right. There's other things. So I'll have you talk about that in just a second. But you don't realize how much of an impact your back has you do. I don't mean you, but we don't realize how much our spine has an impact on things until we're in pain. That's usually when it's like, I actually use my back to do every single thing that I do over the course of the day. So for me, and I've actually seen firsthand people in my family that have significant back issues where it really impairs their ability to function throughout the day. And so for me, taking care of our body, our back and our body is, you only get one shot at it. There's no dress rehearsal with your spine. So for me, I think that taking care of your body and taking care of your spine, it's kind of one of those things where it's crazy not to.
But, it goes hand in hand. If you're eating organic foods, grass-fed meats, and you're going to that extent, but you neglect, brushing your teeth, like,
doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it doesn't add up. So
probably doesn't make a lot of friends either if you neglect it.
I don't know. I've been trying it for a while.
I'm working on it.
The mask really helps. Kind of keeps it in.
Lets me know what's going on.
Like, it's like a two-person friend day today, I think. I don't know.
But to share just also, because there have been times, so it's not, chiropractic is not completely just about the spine. There's shoulders, neck. Can you just share like some other things that kind of come into, I just don't know how much people know about chiropractic. So,
people come in oftentimes and I think they have an idea because they call to schedule because they're like, my arm's been going numb, right? And I'm like, okay, well, it's not your arm. It's the nerves exiting your neck that go down your arm, right? Mm-hmm. Or, I got this, it's this thing between my shoulders. That is such a common referral to a lower problem in your lower neck, right? Mm-hmm. And so, posture is everything when it comes to how gravity is influencing the wear and tear of our spine. So that's one of the reasons we X-ray everybody, because we want to say, what does your spine really look like under the surface? And what has your posture really done to you over the years that you've been standing the way you stand or sit the way you sit? And you can see how the spine literally remodels with arthritis because of the wear and tear. And it's the body's self-healing adaptation that's taking place when you see that stuff, whether it was an injury or whatever. You hear people say, oh, I just slept wrong, and then you take their X-ray and you see 20-30 years of decay in their spine. I'm like, I don't think you slept wrong. I think the slept wrong thing precipitated a symptom, but this has been going on for a long time.
Well, that was from my experience coming in. We didn't do X-rays because I think when I started, I was soon after pregnant. And so we didn't do them. And then, or maybe I started when I was pregnant.
Yeah, you did.
Anyways, so we didn't do them. And then we did it after. And I thought that I was just the normal wear and tear of having 2 kids. And then
you saw your X-ray.
My X-ray was like, but that's one thing that I just thought, I feel like I'm fairly young. Like I didn't expect to see any curvature. And it was just really interesting to be able to look at it from a quantifiable source of this is actually why it makes even more sense to be on top of this.
we could have just kept adjusting you because you were happy, right? But we said, you know what, we need to take an X-ray because I've never seen your spine. And what do we see? Your spine was crooked as a politician. Not to tell everybody, but yeah, she doesn't have a nice straight spine. It's crooked. But you look at her and she looks healthy. She feels great. She's full of energy. She does all this wellness stuff. She's got a crooked spine.
Right.
But you know what? She got great results anyway because we were helping the nervous system work better. And her spine's always going to be a little crooked. We're never going to make it perfect.
But that goes back into why I'm so diligent with the girls and why I think that this conversation is great to talk with everyone about, because had I been on top of chiropractic when I was younger, that may not be what my spine looks like. So it's just a piece of really, we don't think about kids as like needing that extra support, but it really makes sense. Their body, I just look at Madeline and Olivia and their body is like bumper cars all day, there's just all this rough and tumble type stuff. And so I just think that it's great from both, as Madeline is learning to crawl and looking at how her pelvis is manipulating, to Olivia like jumping and flying off the stuff.
I know.
It's just rough and tumble. Like,
I know my daughter's doing gymnastics now, which is just a lot of stress on the spine. And, she came in for her adjustment today, and she's like, oh, thanks, Daddy. I'm going to sleep so good tonight. Like, you're so cute,
cool.
Gracie.
Yeah, it just makes sense. And I love that. And so, just in sharing that with all of you, hopefully this was helpful to kind of give you an idea of why chiropractic makes sense and why that would be a great routine to get into with your family. Is there anything else that's on your mind that would be helpful to share with everyone before we?
There's so much that you can talk about, but, I guess a philosophy that I really love to try to impart to people is that, medicine really focuses on the sickness of man, and what makes man sick, where chiropractic's focus is on what makes man healthy, what builds your health. What can we do to supply or fuel, right? What can we do to fuel the body to build health, and I want you to really just kind of, I guess, meditate on that thought of, what are the things that make us healthy? What does our DNA really yearn for? And my answers are always eat well, move well, think well, right? So eating well is things that are from nature, organic things, right? Not man-made processed stuff, not GMO stuff, right? So decrease toxicities, right? So that's what makes man sick. So we want to stay away from that. We want to be pure and sufficient, right? So being full of everything.
So one of the other things that I love about what you offer here is very education based. And I'm not sure if you want to share it, and that's okay if you don't, but the first education class that I came to, you have this saying about a plant that absolutely cracks me up. And I think of it often about if a plant was dying. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, the plant analogy.
You don't have to say it in its full capacity, but I really like how you delivered that as far as, I'll give the G version. So if you had a plant that was not doing well, was very unhealthy.
What would you do for it?
What would you do for it? Right.
Yeah.
you would not crush up medicine and give it to the plant.
Yeah.
You would give it sunlight, water,
and nutrition.
Right. That was
Yeah.
the different version of what you said.
Yeah.
But it gives, I just thought that was a great.
And again, that goes to that whole model of like, are we looking at the cause or are we looking at the symptom?
Right.
That was really what that whole is to point out. Like if we took that plant and treated it like we treat human beings, who would we go see? We go see the doctor, and they would do all their tests. They would do the leaf biopsies, the soil samples, the MRI, the CT scan, and bill the insurance company for all of it. And you just give your copay. And so for you, it's like, no big deal. What's the answer? Well, we've got to give you a name now. You're a depressed plant, right? So you need Prozac, so we grind up Prozac and put it in the soil. And my question is, what happens to the plant? You didn't give it water. You didn't give it sunlight. You didn't give it good soil. What happens to your plant? Is it healthy now?
Right.
And the crazy thing is I've actually had people say, well, at least it's happy. And I'm like, really? Like that's your goal, is just to have a temporary moment of a high of being happy? And that's how lost I think we've gotten so disconnected what really, what we're capable of.
Yeah.
And my favorite saying is that you're born to be healthy, not sick. That's your default is actually health. It's not sickness and disease.
Yeah. Yeah. And that kind of pairs into my concept of like, your symptoms are not a life sentence. There's things that you can do based on your symptoms.
Don't become your symptoms. Don't become your diagnosis. You're so much better than that. We are all an unreproducible masterpiece. In other words, you're a very unique masterpiece. There's never going to be another version of you. So let's get to work with supporting you. Let's figure out the best way to fuel your body, to energize your body, to support every system in your body, whether it's the nervous system, the motor system, the digestive system, and the integumentary system. Everything in your body needs support and it needs fuel.
I love it.
Fuel and activation.
Cool. I think that's an awesome place to wrap up with. This was great. Thank you so much for talking tonight.
You're very welcome.
If you are interested, Dr. Pete, again, I can't say enough about having him as our provider for chiropractic. He's located on Lenox Ave in Oneida. So if you're close by, it's definitely we drive a little bit to come here, but it's worth it. So we've been very happy with having him help us out, and the girls love him. So it's been
certainly an honor to be your chiropractor for sure. We love you guys. And thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. Bye, everybody. Have a good night.
Bye.